Hello everyone, my name is Lex. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about teaching in South Korea and whether or not it's worth it and whether or not it's right for you. I know the Hallyu wave has definitely been hitting. A million people are intrigued by the idea of moving abroad. I know a lot of people are looking to leave their home countries, even if it's just for a little bit, or looking to get some new cultural experiences. And I think a lot of people kind of end up setting their sights on teaching ESL abroad, if those are things that they're interested in. And I know there are always a lot of questions surrounding that, whether or not it's worth doing or worth even like looking into. So I'm going to answer some of those kinds of questions today. I will also leave timestamps down below if you want to peruse specific portions of the video. This is the first in a series where I'm going to give you everything you need to know about moving here, moving abroad, living in Korea, applying for Korea, interviews, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about all of it here. This is the first video in the series. Why should you teach in South Korea? Let's talk about it. So really today we're going to talk about like what some good reasons are, or why you should teach in South Korea. We're going to look at some reasons why you maybe shouldn't work in South Korea, teaching English that is. And also just in general, is it worth doing? I've been living and working in South Korea for 2 years at this point, which is insane. It simultaneously feels like I've been here for a decade and also like I just moved here yesterday. I've been working at the same school for my entire time here so far. However, I am moving up to Seoul in March. Okay, first of all, the general merits of South Korea specifically. Why choose South Korea? Well, it's a beautiful country. The like original architecture is super cool. It's been very rapidly developing, so a lot of the country is like a lot of the buildings are new. The building I live in, I think it's only been here for like, I don't know, a decade or so. And I live in one of the like up and coming like burgeoning parts of the city that I live in, which is really nice. But there are places like that all over the country, which is cool. And also though, there's still quite a bit of like original traditional architecture. The nature is beautiful. It's cool because it's a small country, so you've got oceans, you've got mountains, you've got cities, you've got rural areas. You know, it's all here in a very condensed, travelable area, which is dope. The country itself is easy to navigate. There's really user-friendly public transportation. It's affordable, it's quick, it's easy to figure out. Love to see it. It's also, depending on where you're from, the cost of living is pretty nice. I grew up in America. I'm American. And I find that the cost of living is a little lower here, and that I can do more things with the same amount of money. Like, the money that I make goes further here than it did back when I lived in the States. So I think if that's something you're looking for, it's a great reason to move over here. Yeah, so why should you move to Korea? All of those reasons, but also more specifically, like I said, cost of living. I lived and worked in Colorado. I find that about the same amount of money, because I make a little bit less here, but I don't have to pay rent, because that's something that you typically get on an E2 visa, is you get housing provided. So I don't pay rent, so I make roughly equivalent if you take rent into account, but I can do way more. My money goes way further. I don't feel as impoverished as I sometimes did in Colorado. I also find that on the whole, there are some really bad jobs, but there are also some really good jobs. I think you should move here if you really genuinely have an interest in teaching. Like, if you would like to help children learn, grow, especially if you teach younger students. I get to teach kindergarten in the morning, in the afternoon, which is super fun. They're my favorite age group. Them and like 12-year-olds. I love 12-year-olds. But the kindergartners are fun because you get to teach them English and like basic things, but you also get to kind of teach them like how to be a student and how to be a human, which is not everyone's jam, but if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I definitely think that teaching abroad is something worth checking out. I know I already mentioned it. If you have a genuine interest in teaching and a genuine interest in English, I think that helps too. It's not 100% necessary, but it does give you a little bit of a leg up, because here's the deal. Being a native speaker of a language and being able to teach it are not the same thing, right? There's obviously overlap. It's easier to teach if you understand. But, you know, your kids are going to ask you questions. The other day, my student asked me what, my 7-year-old, she's Korean age 7, so she's 6, asked me what shirking was. And if I didn't have a good vocabulary, I'd have been like, shit, I don't know. But, you know, things like that. Being able to explain grammar structures, grammar rules, having an understanding of the English language, but also genuinely being interested in teaching kids. I know a lot of people move here because they want to, like, hang out and see Korea, which is also cool, but you should have an interest in teaching your students, because at the end of the day, these kids really deserve a quality education, and I don't think it's fair to come here because you only care about the other stuff and then to half-ass your job because who cares? You should come here if you have an interest in education and teaching, but you don't have a teaching degree. If you have a degree in something else. That's one thing that is super cool about teaching abroad is you don't technically have to have gone to school for education. My degree is in human communication, which, you know, that has transferable skills, but I didn't sit down and study teaching or ESL. So if you want to pivot into teaching or you're really interested in teaching, but you picked a different degree path, that's a great reason to come and teach abroad. And then you can decide if that's something you would like, and if you want to end up pursuing that in your home country, you know, you can take the necessary steps to do that if you want to go back. This one is maybe controversial. If you have an interest in K-pop, K-dramas, Korean culture, the Korean language, things like that, that is a perfectly fine reason to consider. If that's the only reason you want to move to Korea, don't do it. But if you like kids, you want to teach, you want to go abroad, you XYZ, whatever, and you also love K-pop, you know, you stan ATs or whatever, or you love K-dramas, or you've been studying Korean and you want to be in a place where you can practice, things like that, that is a perfectly valid reason to be thinking about it. It's not the reason you should come, but if you're making a pro-con list, that's a definite pro, right? I get it. Myself, I don't really like K-dramas very much. I mean, some are okay. I like K-pop, though, because I love music, and getting to go to K-pop concerts because I live in Korea, and they're like $150 per ticket, and it's a vibe. I'm not gonna say it's not a pro, you know? If you're okay with not making a ton of money, if you want a job that's super lucrative and you're like making bank and you're, you know, living the high life, this is not the job for you. We don't get paid very much, but I mean, it's definitely like a livable wage in my opinion. I'm perfectly comfortable. I'm not like down to the wire at the end of the month with $2 in my bank account, and I do a lot. So like, I think it's fine, but if you want to be making 6 figures, not the job for you. This one is huge. If you are willing to deal with the general frustration, unease, anxiety of living in another country and having to figure out the systems and how to apply for things, especially if you don't speak Korean, which most of us don't. I study Korean. I'm by no means fluent. I can stumble my way through pretty much everything I need to do, but when I got here, I spoke pretty much no Korean. I could read, and I could, like, introduce myself, but that was pretty much it. But if you're not willing to figure out how to go to the doctor, or go to the bank, or sign up for things online, or if you're just, like, generally unwilling to learn anything about the cultural experience, or, like, the landscape of the place that you're working, maybe don't move abroad, just because it can be really difficult. Even if it is something that you care about and you're trying really hard about, it still can be awful sometimes to deal with that. So if you're not willing to deal with that, I wouldn't bother, because it's gonna make your life a little miserable if that's not something you're willing to navigate. And some reasons you maybe shouldn't work in South Korea, if you want to move to South Korea and teach ESL because you have this idea of living here and getting to travel around to all of the Asian countries that you're nearby, and like that's the reason you want to move here, don't teach ESL here. Because don't wait, hear me out. Okay. Here's the thing. We don't get that much time off, especially if you work in a hagwon or a private like kindergarten, English kindergarten. We get so little time off every year that I don't think the other 340 days of the year are gonna make those like 12 days off that you get worth it for you. So if, once again, if there's like a list of other reasons you're interested in moving here and for you getting to see Asia, more of Asia is a pro, totally go for it. But if that's the only reason you want to move here, I would suggest finding a different kind of job, maybe looking into like a digital nomad situation or a different kind of corporate job, maybe somewhere else in Asia. I don't know, but we don't get very much time off. For your first year, they are legally obligated to give you 11 days off. Typically you get given summer and winter, especially in like a kindergarten. So I get like a week off for winter-ish. We don't even technically get a full week off for winter. We get 4 days and the weekend, so it's like 6 days total. And we got 5 days off for summer, so we got, 9 days total? That's all that we got. And then if you're there for longer, you get more vacation days. But your first year, you're gonna have no days. So heed that warning. If you want to travel around in Korea specifically, I mean, not a bad reason to come over here if you're interested in the other stuff, because it's a super travelable country in general. So that is doable. But if you want to go abroad every weekend, if you hate children, not the job for you. Likewise, if you have literally zero interest in teaching children or teaching English, not the job for you. If you want to save a ton of money or pay off a ton of debts, think hard about it because I know I mentioned we don't make that much money. So I know there's a lot of things online that say that you can save a ton of money teaching abroad in Korea. That statistic is like a little outdated because the general wage of an ESL teacher in Korea has not really gone up very much in the last like 20 years. So 20 years ago, yeah, making 2 million won a month was plenty to save $1,000 a month or more. Nowadays, that's significantly harder. Let's do a little math and break it down. If you have student loans and you need to pay $500 a month, USD, we're going to use USD because that's the one that I know. I'll even give you my starting wage. We can do it based off of the wage that I made when I started. I made 2.35 million won. So after exchange rate, that's just about $2,000 a month. You need to send $500 home for your student loan. That puts you at $1,500 USD a month. So if you want to save half of your paycheck, you now have just under $1,000 to live on for the whole month. It's doable, but you're not going to be able to do anything. On $1,000 a month, there's no way. So if you want to be saving $1,000 a month and paying off student loans and like living a life, I recommend finding a better paying job. I know I kind of already mentioned this. If you're not willing to learn anything about the cultural landscape or the culture or any of the language, I would think twice about coming here. You can be fine if you don't speak a lick of Korean. I've had coworkers who literally don't know a single word, or coworkers who know 안녕, 안녕하세요, but they like can't really say it and they're like 안녕하세요 and that's like all they got. You can do it. Like, it's possible, but this is maybe a personal thing. I think it's like a little bit disrespectful to not put in like any effort. If you are not typically self-sufficient, or the idea of having to do a million things for yourself in a place where you don't speak the language is so, like, gives you a ton of anxiety or is super, super scary, I would think twice about coming, because some schools you're going to be really lucky and you're going to have a boss or a director who's super helpful and super chill. Some schools are not like that. You're going to have to do everything by yourself. If the idea of having to do everything for yourself in a foreign country is scary to you, I would think twice, because there's no way to be 100% sure which kind of situation you're going to be in until you get here. All right, moving on. Is it worth it? It depends. I think it depends what you want to get out of it. If you are looking for a cool cultural experience for a year and you think you like kids and you want to move abroad and just like have that experience moving here for a year, yeah, it's probably totally worth it for you. If you got your degree in business and you want to start a life working in human resources, I would not necessarily think that moving here and teaching for, I mean, maybe a year, but anything longer than that, it's going to give you some soft skills, but it's not necessarily going to be a super marketable, transferable thing to have on your resume. I really just think you have to decide for yourself whether it's worth it. That's the other thing, is a lot of people move here and they think they're going to be here for a year and they're here for 5. And then they feel boxed in. So if that's something that you think you might become a victim of, like something you might do, and then the idea of going back and having to start basically from the ground up again when you're 30 or 40 or whatever is like not something that you're willing to navigate, I would maybe say a year at most, maybe. But also maybe it's just better for you to get a head start in that profession that you were already looking at. I'm going to say, for me, this move was worth it. I love my job. I love my kids. I love my life. I love my friends. Just in general, everything for the most part, all of the bad things for me are worth it. There's nothing so bad that I've experienced here that it has made the rest of it not worth doing. Obviously, I like it here. I'm still here. 2.5 years later, and we're looking at least 3.5 years, but maybe a few. I'm kind of intending to be here for a while, and I don't know, we'll see. I might get a master's degree in ESL. I'm still thinking about it, but I think it also might be cool to get into like curriculum development for ESL, something like that eventually. But for now, I think it's worth it. I love my life in like the day-to-day. I like my job, all of that. I think it's worth it. Okay, so now that we've maybe helped you decide whether or not teaching in Korea is something that you should do, I'm going to be making, I think I mentioned this earlier, I'm going to be making a series of videos. Okay, where do you go from there? What's the process? What are interviews like? What questions do you need answered? What are some red and green flags? How to find a good job? What do you need to bring when you move here? All of those kinds of things. General life advice for here. All of those kinds of things. We are making a series, a playlist. The next few months, I'm really going to be deep diving into this for you guys alongside my like normal style content. But be sure to subscribe so that you can be updated when all of those come. And also, like I said, I will like link the playlist and the other videos down below. If you have any questions or there's anything specific that you need me to answer, to talk about as far as teaching ESL in Korea goes, drop a comment down below and I will answer you, because I want you guys to find the perfect job for you. I want everyone to be as lucky and fortunate as I have been in finding the right job. I believe in you. You can do it. You can join me if it's decided it's something you're interested in. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you very, very soon. Bye.